Welcome back to the Deacon of Real Estate podcast, starring Alex Deacon, the Deacon of Real Estate himself. Alex, what's going on?
Hey, Adam.
Hey.
We're going to talk about some good stuff today.
Talking about water damage.
We're going to talk about some
Preventing
stuff.
it. Talking about some good stuff.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff.
Some stuff.
This stuff,
Let's
stuff.
Want to get specific?
All the stuff.
Let's talk about some stuff.
Let's get real specific stuff.
We're going to talk about how to prevent water damage. And this has to do mostly with plumbing.
Okay.
You'll find that plumbing, you don't have to say it that way, but plumbing
makes it
seems to be the most expensive part of being a landlord, other than not properly managing your property, meaning letting tenants get away with this and that and not paying rent. But plumbing, as far as repairs and maintenance, by far number one as far as I'm concerned. Because it can cause so many other problems. You know, like a leaky pipe can cause $20,000 in interior damage, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about how to prevent some of these little nightmares, little $5 fixes that can cost thousands of dollars of damage.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of it's just being proactive and staying ahead of the game.
Yeah, and you did something on our site. Did you just do a blog or something similar to that?
We did a couple different things about things to do, projects to take care of during the wintertime, and this kind of ties in, and I'm sure, I know a lot of the plumbing was on there.
And it is wintertime, so
it's wintertime.
It's cold today.
It is frigid today.
Freezing.
So, all right, so what are some good ways to prevent some plumbing catastrophes?
Okay. Well, the biggest problem we have is when you're buying the amount of properties, the volume that we buy. And on top of that, we manage, Mace Property Management, we manage 650 units or so. So anything that's vacant this time of year, the tenant moved out, or it's being rehabbed, so of course it's sitting there vacant, and when the contractor's not there, it's just a ticking time bomb. You have to be very cognizant of making sure the water is shut off and the heat is running. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of our landlords, they'll want to get cheap on the cheap end and say, hey, you know what? The place is rent ready. Okay, good. But let's just turn the furnace off. We don't need the furnace on. And that's okay. I mean, that's not a bad idea, but you have to make sure that the water is shut off completely and everything is opened. All the faucets are open. The hot water tank is drained. Okay. And you put like an antifreeze type of liquid in all the drains. Okay, so like a P trap is shaped like a U or a P.
Okay.
So there's water that sits in those P traps, and the reason that they're created like that is to keep the sewer gas from coming up through your drain.
Gotcha.
It keeps the smell down.
Okay.
But the downside of that is if that freezes in there, that little section,
lies dormant for a while.
It will basically explode your P-traps everywhere.
Okay.
So you have to pour antifreeze down the line. So what I always suggest is leave the heat on, because shutting the heat off causes issues with plaster, and it gets really frigid and cold in there. It's probably not a good thing for a house to have it sit, the heat off. So you leave the heat on maybe at 50 degrees. But the misconception is, well, then I don't have to turn the water off because the heat's on. Wrongo! Why is that wrongo?
You'll still go through times where the water could freeze, get cold pipes, right? I mean, it's...
Yeah, what happens, it's a house sitting there vacant, right?
Right.
What happens if tomorrow night the furnace decides, I don't want to work anymore?
Right.
Your water's on, so everything's pressurized.
Ugh.
So boom, that's really, really bad. So, yeah, keep the heat on low and still shut the water off and still winterize, okay? Drain that hot water tank, because if you don't drain the hot water tank and shut it off, so if it's electric, you have to shut the breaker off. If it's a gas hot water tank, you have to shut the gas valve off. This way it's not heating water, because if you heat water, it's eventually going to evaporate, and then now you're just heating nothing, and it's going to destroy the tank. So you have to drain the tank and shut the hot water tank off, because if you don't drain the tank, just consider that like if you put ice in an ice cube tray, and then after it freezes, it expands, that hot water tank will literally just crack.
Okay. That's a mess. That's a mess when that happens.
Always winterize the property when it's not being used. If you have a contractor there, then let him know that he or she needs to shut the water off every day. Shut it off. And if you're going to be, let's say it's going to be vacant for a week or so, then you might want to shut it off, open up all the valves, and drain the lines.
Okay.
Super, super important, and I can't emphasize that enough. We had, and here's another one that really throws a monkey wrench in it. Okay, so let's say you have a property has hot water heat. Do you know what hot water heat is?
I do not.
Hot water heat is just, you have instead of a furnace that blows hot air through the vents, you have a boiler downstairs that boils the water.
Okay.
And then the pump pumps that hot water through those big radiators,
gotcha.
right?
Okay.
Sometimes they're those big old cumbersome radiators. Sometimes they're smaller ones. They look like electric baseboard heaters.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
remember, those things are energized with water. Okay. So you can't. The problem with one of those properties is you can't, in most cases, you can't shut the water off. Because if you shut the water off and leave the furnace on, your furnace requires water supply to it because it has to cycle that water. So you can't shut the water off. So if your furnace stops working, now you have your whole heating system energized with water, and you have your whole plumbing system energized with water.
It's about to freeze.
And the impact could be immense because you're replacing an entire heating system and an entire plumbing system. So in those cases, man, you either have to shut down everything, and that's have an HVAC person and a plumber go in there and shut it down properly, get all that water out, and just leave it sit there ice cold, and you're going to show the house when it's cold and what have you.
And this isn't just for, I mean, obviously this absolutely applies to the Pittsburgh area, but this is applicable to most of, the United States. I mean, even in the warmest areas, I mean, you still get your cold nights in the wintertime that you
if you're in...
Not Florida, obviously.
Yeah, you're not going to... It's not everywhere, but I'll tell you this, Adam, you should still make it a habit, even at your own private residence, when you go on vacation or something like that, even if it's in Florida, that you shut the water off.
Okay.
Because you never know when a water pipe is going to burst. Like, for example, I remember one time when we first got married, we were sitting in bed sleeping at 3 a.m, and all of a sudden we heard this burst, and then water was just, and then, and it was water, and we're like, what the hell is that? We went downstairs, and literally the bottom of the hot water tank just blew out. So imagine if that happened and you weren't home.
Right.
And you're going on vacation. So it's really a good habit to, and even on your hot water tanks, I think when you turn the knob one way or another, it'll say vacation.
Oh, okay.
Or you can adjust the heat on it. So you turn that to vacation on your hot water tank, and you shut the water off when you leave.
Right.
So even if a house is sitting vacant for a short time because you're going to be renting it, shut the water down. Make sure the contractor knows when he leaves every day, shut it off. But it's much more prevalent in the cold.
Absolutely.
But to get back to the boilers, and so you either need to leave the boiler off completely, or you just have to go over there and check it. It's a lot,
Okay.
Like, we haven't had really cold weather this December. It's December 10th right now. What is today?
Today's the 8th.
Today's the 8th. We haven't had really cold weather.
No, we've been fortunate.
So it's supposed to get cold this weekend.
Yes, sir.
So let's say it's 20 degrees.
Yes, sir.
And after about 2 days of 20 degrees, by that time, that's enough coldness to penetrate the inside of the house also and to freeze everything. So you'd literally have to go over there like every couple of days. And that could be cumbersome. I mean, who has the time to do that?
Right. And only a certain amount of hours in the week.
Yes.
How many of
so
it do you
true.
really want to be going over checking on a boiler?
So true. So what I guess to just summarize is learn how to, if you're going to winterize yourself, learn how to do it. It's not that difficult, but it needs to be done right.
Okay.
And you could probably learn a lot of that on just YouTube. Or hire a plumber who could do it for you. If it's hot water heat, I would suggest that being handled by an HVAC person who knows what they're doing. So they can drain that system completely, get all the water out. And so you eliminate a chance of there being thousands of dollars worth of damage. just a quick little gem there, a nugget that
Yeah.
hopefully it's going to help save somebody some money down the line, because we've had our frozen pipe issues, and they're not fun.
No,
Yeah.
no, absolutely not. I've actually, that's one of the few things I can relate to. I've had them before, and they are not pleasant.
Just one more quick tip is, a lot of times you'll have, if you've dealt with it before,
Yes.
so we see it a lot in like an exterior wall. It might get really cold. This might only happen maybe a couple times a year, right, on a particular property.
Right.
So the water line might run into a crawl space and it's not heated, or that water line might run up an outside wall and it's not insulated. Then you'll get a frozen pipe issue there. And if you let that go too long, it could be disastrous. So what you want to tell your tenant, if that does happen, or if you know that house is prone to it happening, you might let them know that, hey, on a really cold day, you might want to leave that kitchen faucet run just a little bit. Just a little bit.
The drizzle method.
Yeah, just to keep the water flowing. Because otherwise, they're going to have a faucet that's not working, and then you're going to have to get a plumber over there to heat up that pipe and thaw it out, and so on and so forth. So that's a really common problem.
It's like you were reading my mind, because that was going to be the next thing. I was going to say, all right, before we wrap up, is this fact or myth? Just would that help out with the plumbing? Because that's an old, we always have the old wives' tales of this chicken broth and this will cure a common cold every time,
Mm-hmm.
And you always hear it, and it does make sense, letting the water, drizzle out a little bit, just, but never really heard, had it confirmed. So good enough.
It works, but so here's the devil's advocate speaking.
That's why I wanted to ask it. Thank you, sir.
Because we get landlords that will let us know about an issue with a typical issue that they have with the kitchen sink on certain cold days. And my question to them is, are you going to fix that? And their answer to me is, no, just let the tenant know. That's like letting your teenager know.
Yeah,
to make sure that they shut and lock their window in their bedroom, or that they, don't lose that $20 I gave you, teenager.
Right.
You can't rely on the tenant to know how to do that, or to do it. It'll say, well, tell the tenant just to open up the doors under the kitchen sink and put a little space heater there when it gets really cold. What if they forget?
Right.
And whose fault is that? It's not the tenant's fault.
And
you're gonna go back on the tenant. It's never gonna hold up in court if you have to go to a magistrate or something like that for thousands of dollars worth of damage. It's not gonna work. So if you're a landlord, it's different when you're a homeowner, because you're at home and you'll take care of that. I'm not gonna fix that. I'm just gonna put a heater there. I know that takes care of it.
Right.
If you're a landlord, that puts extra pressure on you to make sure that those plumbing issues aren't there ever.
Right, and because from the tenant side, it's usually either one of two things. It's either lack of knowledge, you don't know what you're supposed to do in the wintertime to prevent these things, or you just simply don't care, and that's why you're renting in the first place. You know what I mean? It's either one or the other. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with the ignorance side of it, because not everybody is well versed with housing and things like that of that nature. But you have to protect like you said, they're the teenager. You have to protect yourself against.
We manage 650 units. It's like, just imagine if you have kids, if you had 650 teenagers.
It's like a boarding school.
I meant to simplify it, but that's kind of the way it is. So just keep that in mind.
So, what else? Any final thoughts on this, Alex? As far as helping people save money, just especially in the wintertime, because it's those little things that we don't think about, or that we tend to forget because we overlook the easy things that are the routine things that we always do on an everyday basis. Sometimes we overlook them when a big problem, So this is one we definitely don't want to overlook ever, because it could lead to thousands and thousands of dollars of problems. But
we could probably close out by saying, don't shortcut on plumbing.
Okay.
Don't use $10 sink faucets. Don't shortcut on plumbing. Just don't do it.
It gets messy quick.
Yeah, it can be.
It gets messy quick. Alex, I thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I thank you very much, sir. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got something from this. I hope you know now. Take care of that. Take care of your properties in the wintertime. Make sure that if they're vacant, make sure you're winterizing. You are turning the water off if can be. You just want to make sure you're not getting frozen pipes. Water exploding everywhere is not a sight and a mess I think you want to deal with. So for Alex, for myself, and for everyone else here at Deacon